All right, so I can control it with the scan tool. The fact that it moves, that tells me that the wiring of the actuator is good, the actuator is good. So if it's not building enough boost pressure, we could have a leak somewhere. Now, we don't have a boost pressure code. The back pressure sensor code that we have could be causing the van to lose power as well. So we can already rule out any potential actuator issue because the actuator moves. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna check out this back pressure sensor. Let's check the wiring and make sure the sensor is working. I am going to disconnect our mass airflow sensor. I'm gonna remove the air filter box. Now, when I was working on this, I did see that the wiring of the back pressure sensor didn't look good. But I didn't want to mess with it because I thought it was fine. I said, you know what, I'm not going to touch this. But I guess I should have looked at it because maybe that wiring is not good. Because if the exhaust back pressure sensor is sending a skewed signal to the engine computer might think, actually, someone cut this. This is not supposed to be open like this, but it was cut by somebody, not us. So look at this wire, Matt. This wire, someone did fix this, but look at what they did. So the back pressure sensor is this guy over here. This is the sensor. So I am going to disconnect it. Okay. Yeah, look at that. Whoever fixed this wiring didn't do a good job. So I hope we just have a connection issue here. Okay, so this is a pressure sensor. It's a 3-wire sensor. We should have 5-volt reference, ground, and signal. So I don't know which one is which. So we're gonna look at the wiring diagram. So we're gonna go to our engine performance wiring diagram. This is a 3.0 liter engine. We're gonna find our exhaust back pressure sensor, which is, this is the pressure differential sensor, exhaust pressure sensor. I think it's this one. In exhaust. We have a dark blue wire with pink and white, and then pink and brown. So yeah, it should be these ones. So we have a dark blue, pink, and then, yeah, pink and white, okay? That's the quickest way you can verify if you're looking at the right sensor, by looking at the wiring on the vehicle and matching it with the wiring on the diagram. So now I'm gonna highlight all these wires. So it looks like our pink and white is gonna be our 5-volt reference. So I'm going to back probe the pink and white wire, which is this one, pink and white. So this should be 5-volt. Back probe that. We're gonna use our multimeter to check the wiring. We got our multimeter on. Okay, we're gonna ground our multimeter. So the black lead of the multimeter is gonna go to ground. Let me take this over here. So that's connected to ground. Okay, and then our red lead is gonna go to the back probing tool that's connected to the 5-volt reference wire. So right now we have 0.0 volts on the multimeter. I'm gonna go in the vehicle and turn the key on. Once I turn on the key, we should have 5-volt on that wire if the wiring is good. So key is on. Do we have 5-volt there? Okay, so we have 4.99. Okay, so our reference voltage is good. So now the pink and white wire is gonna be our sensor ground. So now we're gonna move to the other one. So this is sensor ground. And sensor ground should give us about 0.0. So that's good. And then the other one is gonna be the signal. So dark blue wire with pink is gonna be sensor signal. So let's back probe the sensor signal and see what we got there. So we have 0.01 volt on the sensor signal wire. So this tells me that the wiring, the signal wire is good. So from the sensor connector all the way to the computer, the wiring is good. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reconnect this exhaust back pressure sensor. Okay, so when we reconnect it, watch this, we reconnected our voltage. The voltage on the signal wire goes up to 4.57 volt. Okay, now I'm gonna disconnect this connector. I don't like how this voltage is kind of fluctuating. Okay, so I'm wiggling this to see if we have a wiring issue, to see if we have a connection issue. It looks like we don't. We could have a sensor issue, but it looks like this sensor kind of looks new. Don't you think, Matt? That sensor looks a little shiny there. It looks like it was replaced. I don't like how this voltage is kind of going up and down. It shouldn't be moving like that. We should have, oh, check this out. I just pulled this, look at that. Then where is this voltage coming from then? Watch. What the frick? Look, this is disconnected, but we have voltage on the multimeter. This shouldn't happen unless this is making contact in the connector. Maybe this connector is bad. Oh, check this out. Let me just freaking pull the whole thing. Yeah, this wiring needs to be fixed. I don't like how this thing is going back and forth. Let me check my multimeter. I hope my multimeter is not leading me astray here. Yeah, so when we touch power over here, we have 12.23 volts on the multimeter. Now, this signal wire is disconnected. If I back probe it, we shouldn't have that. Now, let me connect to this end of the wire. Where is that voltage coming from? Because it's disconnected. So it has to be in this connector. So I guess inside here, I believe the pin of the supply voltage, the 5-volt reference voltage, is also touching the signal wire, because this shouldn't be happening, because this is, as you can see, it's not connected to anything. Okay, all right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I might have to do this off camera. I'm gonna cut this. I do have a couple wiring harnesses of Sprinter vans here. I'm gonna change this connector. I believe this connector, all these wires are touching each other inside the connector. I'm gonna change that connector. Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the wire and then, splice in a new connector in it. And then we're gonna reconnect to the sensor, because when I'm looking at the sensor, it looks like the sensor was replaced. I don't know if you guys can see it. Matt, if you can zoom around this area, that sensor looks kind of shiny to me. It looks like it's been replaced before. Now, I don't know if it's a aftermarket sensor or an OEM sensor. That sensor could still be defective, but I don't like the results that I'm getting at the wiring. So I'm gonna change that connector off camera. I'm gonna splice up a new connector there, and then I'll bring you guys back up. So a couple of minutes later, I did fix the wiring of the exhaust back pressure sensor. I'm gonna show you what I did off camera. So if cameraman Matt can show you this wiring harness. So I did have this wire over here. I got it out of one of the engines that I did a while ago. That engine came with the entire harness. So I went and cut the harness from that harness. So I used these shrink type butt connectors, these guys, to fix the wire. Now I'm gonna show you the wiring that came out of the vehicle. This is what was there, okay? As you can see, this wire was fixed but not done properly. This type of butt connectors is not what you want to use. This is no bueno. You don't want to use this because these ones don't shrink. But the one I have here, these ones shrink and they seal the wire, okay? So this is trash. Now I'm gonna go in the vehicle and turn the key on. We're gonna check the wiring that I fixed, and then I'm gonna put everything back together so we can go on a test drive. So I got the key. Let's turn the key on. Now, remember before, with that old wire on, the voltage on the signal wire was kind of jumping, was bouncing up and down. Let me grab my flashlight. So Matt, if you can show everyone this, we're using this multimeter. The multimeter is still connected to ground, okay? So if I touch power, just to check, if I touch power here, we should read system voltage or battery voltage. So we have 12.12 volts. So now we're gonna check the first wire. So the blue wire, I believe it was blue with a pink tracer, that is our sensor signal. So remember before, the signal was jumping up and down. As you can see over here, I'm back probing the blue wire. So we're back probing the blue wire, which is our signal wire. Our voltage is not changing, okay? Voltage is steady, 0, 0 on the multimeter screen, so that's good. So now I'm gonna move this to the next wire. So that's our ground. Ground is fine. So now we're gonna check the last wire, which is gonna be our 5-volt reference. So now we have 4.99 volts, okay? So our reference voltage is there. So now I'm gonna back probe the signal wire again. Okay, we don't have a voltage right now. That's good. So when I connect the connector to the sensor, we should have a voltage reading on the multimeter. So right there. Okay, so we are back probing the signal wire. When we connect the connector to the sensor, we are reading 4.57 volts. So that's good. So the issue was indeed the wiring. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the scan tool. I'm gonna get the scan tool connected to the vehicle. I'm gonna clear the code. What I noticed was when I cleared the exhaust back pressure sensor code, when we went on a test drive, and on our way back, the code came back. So now let's clear the code to see if the code is gonna be cleared. If the code doesn't come back, that will tell me that we have fixed that. The issue was the wiring. And then we'll go from there. I got the scan tool connected to the vehicle. So now I am going to go straight into the engine computer. Let's see what codes we have. We might have mass airflow sensor codes because I was doing the test with the mass airflow sensor disconnected. Yeah, we have all these codes. So now what I'm gonna do is I am going to clear all these codes and then let's see which one will come back. Exhaust pressure sensor voltage too high. That's odd. The same code keeps coming back. Voltage too high. Now, is this a sensor issue? Because Matt, look at, you can show the multimeter screen. So right now I have the exhaust back pressure sensor reconnected and we are tapped into the signal wire. So our voltage right now is 4.57 volts. We still have a exhaust pressure sensor voltage too high code. Now, we know the wiring is good, wiring is fixed. So the issue is the sensor. The sensor is probably not pulling that voltage down enough. I'm gonna clear this code again. Let's see, because that code, apparently, it doesn't go away. Let's see, same code. So here's what I'm gonna do. I work on a lot of these printers here, and that used engine that I was telling you guys about, that old engine that I removed, out of one of the sprinters that I was working on. That engine, I believe, has a exhaust back pressure sensor. I'm pretty much gonna rob Peter to pay Paul. It's a used sensor. I'm gonna get it, and that sensor is good. Okay, we replaced the engine in that sprinter because that engine had 2 cylinders that had low compression. So all the other sensors in the wiring harness, everything else around that engine is good, so I kept it. I'm gonna get the sensor from that engine, and then I'll bring you guys back up. A couple of minutes later, I found a good used exhaust back pressure sensor that I had here in the shop. So now what I'm gonna do is, Matt, if you can show everyone, I don't know how we're gonna do that. I am going to connect this used sensor that we have in the shop, non-good sensor, to the wiring harness. We're gonna watch this voltage on the multimeter screen to see if this voltage is gonna go down. So the fact that on the signal wire of the sensor, we have 4.58 volt, this is what's causing this code that we have in the engine computer, the exhaust pressure sensor voltage too high code, this code over here. So I am going to disconnect the sensor. We're gonna connect our non-good sensor to it. So I disconnect the sensor, our voltage goes down to 0.0 volt on the multimeter, which is fine. So now we're gonna connect our sensor to the wiring harness. Look at the difference, Matt. Can you tell me what's wrong? So the sensor, let me see. So we just had, it's kind of the same voltage. I thought I saw it go down a little. Sensor voltage too high. Hold on. Let's go over here. Let me reconnect this. So on this one, when that one is connected, we have 4.57 volts. Okay, so now let's connect this one. We kind of have the same voltage, so let me back out and see if I can clear this code. As long as that voltage is high, I don't think that thing is going to go away. Same thing. That's odd. That sensor is good. Now with the sensor connected, let me check my 5-volt reference wire. Yeah, we have 4.99 there. Now this is really odd. We might have to test drive this to see if that voltage is going to change. Okay, we still have our exhaust pressure sensor voltage too high code. So here's what I'm going to do. Because this sensor came out of a vehicle that didn't have a exhaust back pressure sensor code, I am going to remove that sensor. I'm going to install this one, and then we're going to drive the vehicle to see what's going to happen, okay? Because right now we know our wiring is fine. So I am going to, maybe the sensor is bad too, I don't know. Let me see if I have another one of these sensors here, just to double check. I might have another one laying around. Let me see if I have another sensor. Let's try a second sensor before I remove that, because this is used, it could be faulty too. Let me see if I have another sensor, and then I'll bring you guys back up. All right, guys, we have an engine outside that we took out of another sprinter. And actually, let me put this back over there so I know that this is the bad one that we have. So this is gonna stay here. This is the one I had laying in the shop. I looked around the shop. I don't have another one here, but I have a sprinter engine outside. I believe that engine has a exhaust back pressure sensor. So we're gonna go there and remove the sensor out of that engine. And I believe that sensor should be good. Now this engine here, actually, I thought I was gonna take it apart. My plan was I kept this engine because I was gonna disassemble it and show it to you guys. You know, we were gonna do an engine disassembly video, but unfortunately I haven't had time to do it. So the engine is over here, Matt, so you have to be careful there. There's snow everywhere. So I have this covered. Let me uncover this. So actually, I think if I remember correctly, I have two engines here that I need to take. Yeah, so this is a Sprinter engine, as you can see. So the wiring harness that I showed you, I cut it from this wiring harness. Okay, now I kept this engine because the injectors are good, the fuel rails and everything. So the sensor is right here. So here's the sensor. This is the exhaust back pressure sensor. So I'm gonna remove it. Now when we took out this engine, it never had an exhaust back pressure sensor code. So this sensor should be good. Okay, let me remove this little seal over here. There's this little gasket here, right there. This little washer. Now I don't want to leave. I'm gonna put, oh, where did they go? I'm gonna block this hole because I don't want any dirt going in there. Although this engine has low compression, but all the components around it are good. So I always like to keep these used engines here for situations like this. If I want the sensor or a wire, I can just come here and snip one. So we got our sensor. So now let's go back in the shop. All right, we're back in the shop. We got our sensor. This sensor should be a good sensor. So before I install it, I'm gonna connect this sensor to the harness on the vehicle. Now let's see what we got. Okay, so we're gonna back probe the signal wire, which is the blue wire. And then I'm gonna connect my sensor to it. Check that out. Can you tell the difference now, Matt? So I guess the sensor that I had in the shop, this sensor is defective. So the voltage we have there is 0.49 volt. So now I am going to bring my scan tool here. I am going to go into my engine computer. Remember before, when I cleared this exhaust pressure sensor voltage too high code, it kept coming back. Let's clear this code. Let's see if it's gonna go away. Bingo, it went away. Now it's saying exhaust pressure sensor plausible error. Now that's because the sensor is disconnected. We just have the sensor hanging over here. Okay, and as you can see, our voltage right there on the multimeter, the voltage on the multimeter is a lot lower than normal. So that's good. I like that. Okay, so now I'm gonna back out. I'm going to turn off the key, and then we're gonna remove that sensor. Let's turn the key off. I'm gonna remove the sensor that we have on the van. So we are done with our testing. I'm gonna disconnect this. So this is the sensor that we're gonna install. We're gonna undo this sensor here. This sensor is a 24 millimeter sensor. Let me get a short extension. so bad sensor. I'm glad we had this sensor here, because if we didn't have it, oops. All right, so I cracked the sensor. I'm gonna remove it. Now, like I showed you when we were outside, this sensor has a little washer that seals it to the EGR housing, heat EGR cooler housing, but, oh, there it is. There is the washer. I'm gonna drop it. Actually, it's still there. So this is bad. Okay, so bad unit. We're gonna put it right there. Now we're gonna install this one. Now I have to be careful not to drop that little washer over there. I have to finesse it. Yeah. So we're gonna tighten it just, just enough. Okay, so we got the sensor tightened, sensor is installed. So now I'm going to install the electrical connector. I'm gonna back probe this just to check it for one last time. Let's look at what voltage we're gonna have on the multimeter. I'm gonna turn the key on. We have 0.50 volts. Good, I like that. That's better than the 4.50 volts that we had. So this is good, bad sensor. Now, the question is, are we gonna charge the customer for this? Yes. Now that I know the sensor is bad, I mean, we already knew because the wiring, we fixed the wiring. The customer is either gonna pay for that sensor, or we can get a new sensor from Mercedes and install it there, okay? So I'm gonna turn the key off. Now, at this point, I'm actually a lot more, I have put so much time into this van. So actually the initial, like I told you guys, the initial issue was fixing the ABS light that was remaining on and fixing the DPF issue. That's fixed. We didn't stop there. We fixed the exhaust back pressure sensor code. I'm going to disconnect the air filter box. We're gonna get it out of the way. I'm gonna install this air inlet tube. So I'm putting everything back together so we can go on a test drive. Now, you guys might wonder, would the back pressure sensor, would the exhaust back pressure sensor code cause the vehicle to lose power? The answer is yes, because as the back pressure sensor sends a skewed signal to the engine computer, the engine computer might think like there's too much back pressure in the exhaust, so it's gonna reduce the engine power. So the engine is gonna go into a derate mode, and that will cause the vehicle to lose power. So it's like a safety mechanism. So the engine will go into a safety mode so that nothing gets damaged. Okay. So now I'm gonna install this thing over here. Actually, I should have installed this cover first, but that's okay. We got it. And then there's another cover. Now all these covers don't go in properly because all the plastic screws that hold them in place are missing. Some of them are missing. So this cover was just sitting here. And then we're gonna install the air filter box, just like that. We're gonna install the mass airflow sensor, this pressure sensor here. Okay, so things don't always go the way you plan, you know. When this vehicle came here, it came for ABS lights and DPF, low power. You fix one thing and then you figure out another. Because when I first scanned the vehicle, the exhaust back pressure sensor code was not in the engine computer. And I told the customer, your vehicle needs a DPF based on the test that we did, and we fixed the wiring. Now we have another code come up. That happens because sometimes when you have certain codes in the engine computer may not be able to test other components or other systems until you fix certain issues for the engine computer to test the rest of the systems. So be careful about that. Luckily, we have a customer who understands. I'm sure when I explain this to him, he's going to understand. And I'm sure he's going to watch the video also. So I'm getting all the tools out of the way. So now, let's go in the vehicle so we can take this on a test drive. We're back in the vehicle. We're going to go on another test drive. Let me turn the key on. Okay, we have a couple codes. This is because those sensors were disconnected, so I'm going to clear them. Anyways, let's go on a test drive and see what happens. Because now we have a exhaust back pressure sensor voltage too low code, which is weird. So check engine light is off. I'm gonna graph my boost pressure sensor, my boost data pid again. Okay, let's put our scan tool here. Let's go for a drive. Right off the bat, there's one thing I noticed. As we're sitting here, our boost pressure is going up to about 1068 HPA, which was not happening before. Actually, I can also hear the turbo hissing, which is good. That was not happening before, so let's drive. Oops. This thing is gonna get stuck. There's no rear view mirror up here, so it's kind of hard for me to see back there. I'm just using my side mirrors. Okay, let's go for a spin. What do you think, Matt? You think it's fixed? Yeah? Cameraman Matt. Oops. Sorry. Check engine light is off. Oh. Yeah, it's good. I like how it's pulling. Show the dash. This is fixed. No check engine light. Oh, this thing's got a lot of power now. Actually, you guys will see you're gonna see the screen as Matt will put this in the video. Right now, as I'm driving, our boost pressure is about 2257 HPA, which is good. So what was causing, besides the DPF being clogged, the other thing that was causing this van to lose power was the exhaust back pressure trouble code that we had in the engine computer. And that was being caused by a defective back pressure sensor. Oh, this drives a lot better now. Man. Oh, I gotta slow down. It's windy here. Yeah, it's fixed. We're gonna have another happy customer, guys. This is fixed. Oh, I like how this van is driving. Can you show the road? Nice. Earlier, when I was going up this little hill, it was taking a little while for the van to climb up this hill. Now I'm climbing this hill at full speed. Yeah. Nice. We did a good job, guys. Cameraman Matt, what do you think? Think it's fixed? Cameraman Matt says yes. Yeah, this van drives a lot better. Yeah, the owner of this vehicle came all the way from DC So he lives about 2 hours away from us. He found us online. He reached out and he brought his printer. So now I'm gonna tell him, although the check engine light is not on right now, I'm gonna tell him that the check engine light might come on in the future because of the ignition switch trouble code that we had in the engine computer. I believe that code can cause the check engine light to come on. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to do some research about that. So Matt, if you can show the dash as we're driving. So maybe we can bring, yeah, right there, as you can see, oops. So right there, I'm doing about 55 miles an hour. Okay, we got no lights on the dash, so this is good. This is good, it's fixed. It is fixed. I like to come up here because if you have a sprinter that's losing power, going up these little hills can be very challenging, because right now as we're going up the hill, we are building enough boost. The maximum boost that we have on the scan tool right now is 2500 HPA, hectopascals. So yeah, good. We're gonna keep driving. We're gonna turn around somewhere up there, and then we will drive back to the shop. After that, we're gonna wrap up this video. Now, I'm gonna charge a little bit more about the time that I spent to fix the wiring of the exhaust back pressure sensor. So the customer will have to pay for that. And then I'm gonna tell the customer he can buy the sensor that I installed, although it's a used sensor, but we got it from an engine that didn't have a sensor issue. He can buy that sensor from me, or I can get a brand new sensor from Mercedes. So I'll give him the option to choose. And then I'm not gonna sell him that sensor at the same price as Mercedes will sell their sensor. Since this sensor is used, I might have to sell it to him at half price. The van is fixed, okay? I feel comfortable with this. I feel comfortable delivering this to the customer. I have a story I'm gonna tell you guys. Story times. Last week, I had a Sprinter van in the shop. This Sprinter is a gas Sprinter, and actually I don't usually get a lot of gas Sprinters in the shop. Usually I see a lot of diesel Sprinters. So this gentleman reached out to me. He's actually one of our subscribers. He reached out and said, Dio, my Sprinter has a bunch of lights on the dash, and there is a loud growling noise coming from under the vehicle. So he brought the van to the shop. We looked at it. I did the diagnosis. The ABS light was being caused by one of the sensors. One of the wheel speed sensors was not working. And then the growling noise was coming from the drive shaft. I mean, the drive shaft support bearings. So the drive shaft support bearings were completely shut, so they were making noise. I called the customer. I told the customer what I found, and I sent him the estimate. He approved my estimate. We did the work, and at the end, when the vehicle was done, I called him and said, hey, Mr. Customer, your vehicle is done. You can come pick it up. He said, sure, I'm coming. So when the customer came to the shop, I wasn't there. I was on a test drive. I was test driving another vehicle. He came to the shop. He didn't find me, but he found my friend, Jack, who was there, and told him that I wasn't there, so he was supposed to wait for me so he could pick up his vehicle. So the customer, this was a van, so the customer said, okay, I'm gonna wait for Dio. I have my wife that brought me to the shop. I'm gonna wait in my wife's car outside. So he goes out the shop, gets in his wife's car. He sits in his wife's car for a little bit, and then I think 10 or 15 minutes later, he gets out of his wife's car and goes to the back of the shop, because I usually park all the vehicles that are finished on the back of the shop, because when the customer comes and pays the bill, then I drive them around the shop so they can pick up their vehicle. So he went behind the shop, had a second key. He got into his van, so unlocked it, got in the van, started it, and was driving off. Luckily, my friend Jack was there and said, well, did this guy pay deal? So my friend Jack got out of the shop really fast and went in front of him and stood in front of the van, which was a little scary because what about if you ran him over, you know? He stood in front of the van. Cameraman Matt is laughing. Yeah, because this is what happened and I wasn't there, so Jack told me what happened. So he stood in front of the van and Jack asked him and said, did you pay Dio? Did you pay your bill before you take the van? He said, well, Dio's not here. I gotta take the van because I will sell him later. Now, I don't know this guy. Like, he's a customer. You know, he's one of our subscribers. He came to the shop so I can fix his van. This is the first time meeting him. Now, if it was a customer that usually comes, if it was a regular customer, that's another story. This is the first time I've seen this guy. Now he's about to take the van and leave, and he claims that he's gonna sell me the money later on. So my friend, I'm glad my friend Jack was there. He was really pissed off. He locked the gate because there's a gate around our shop. He locked the gate, called me multiple times, because usually when I test drive, I don't usually pay attention to my phone. So when I pulled over, I was driving, I pulled over, I looked at my phone because my phone was vibrating. I looked at my phone, I saw about 15 missed calls from Jack. I answered, he said, hey, the guy that owns that white Sprinter you were working on, is he supposed to pick it up? I said, yeah, he has to pick it up, but he told me he's gonna come this afternoon. He said, well, he's here, he's getting ready to drive off. I said, no, don't let him leave. He still owes me money. So I had to turn around, rush back to the shop. Luckily, my friend Jack was there. He stopped him from leaving. I went there, talked to the guy. I said, what the frick, man? What were you trying to do? He's like, well, I was just, you were not here. I was gonna take the van, and then I was gonna bring you the money. Maybe tomorrow. I was gonna sell you afterwards. I said, no. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. You cannot just come to the shop. We have the vehicle parked outside, and you use your second key to take the van. Like, who does that? And he sounded like he didn't do anything wrong. He was like, no, that's fine. I was just gonna send you your money later on. I said no. So my question to you guys is, how would you deal with customers like that? You know, or maybe, I know there are a lot of people here on our YouTube community that own shops. When you finish a car and you're about to deliver it, what do? Do you put a chain around the wheel? Do you lock the steering wheel? Or how do you do it? Because I see some shops leave vehicles outside for customers to come pick them up. Like, what's the procedure? Do you tell the customer that the vehicle is done, so when they show up, what about if they have another key? Like, if there's anybody who has ever encountered this kind of situation, let us know in the comment section and let us know how you deal with this. Actually, I have another crazy story that I might share with you guys, but not in this video, next time, because that one, we had a customer run away with the car. So we'll probably save that for our live stream, or what do you think, Matt? Yeah, maybe we will save that story for a live stream, because yeah, something crazy happened here. We had someone run away with the car, and I will tell you guys that in the future. So we are back at the shop. Yeah, this is fixed. The check engine light didn't come back on. Anyways, so about that story, the owner of that car paid me. So when I showed up, he paid me. He had cash. He actually paid me, and I gave him the second key, and he left. So you never know what people are capable of. So let's drive in the shop, and then we're gonna wrap up this video. We are back in the shop. The check engine light is still off. Matt, if you can show the dash right there. Cool, check engine light is off. I'm going to turn off the engine. We're gonna end this over here. I'm gonna tell the customer what we did, and if he wants us to fix whatever that's causing the ignition switch code to come back, we're gonna have to do another diagnosis for that. So We're gonna leave it here. I hope you like the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. Now the vehicle has power, it drives well. We're gonna have another happy customer. Cameraman Matt, thanks for being here. If you are not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.